And now we have a follow-up story to Taylor Townsend. If you saw last week's episode, we talked about the grind. Well, she is continuing that grind. She got, after Cincinnati, her ranking is now up to around 60-ish. But it didn't qualify for Cincinnati, so the 60 ranking didn't take effect. So she talked about what she went through again. So she lost to Navarro in Toronto at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Then at 9 p.m., 7 hours later, she left Toronto. At 5 a.m. Eastern, she arrived in Cincinnati. And then she said that at first she was thinking about flying, but it was such short notice that it was going to be $1,400 for a plane ticket from Toronto to Cincinnati with layovers. So it's normally an hour and a half flight, but with layovers, it would have been 6.5, 7 hour flight. So she decided to rent a car. So apparently somebody went with her, so she was able to sleep. So she, with the driving, it ended up being half an hour shorter than what it would have been with the layovers. And then she played the next day, and she did qualify. But she said, this is a lot. The grind is real. It can get to me emotionally, and I am working on my mental health. What are your thoughts on that grind?
It's outrageous, and we're talking about, I'm not going to say she has star power, but we're talking about a familiar name in the tennis verse. This is not a player that people don't know about. This isn't a player that doesn't perform relatively well. This is a player in the top 70 on the tour, grinding, struggling, and logistically, the tour doesn't really work well for people because in order to grow your ranking, you have to play a lot of tournaments. In order to play a lot of tournaments, you have to get from one place to another place in essentially 24 hours sometimes. And those two places are not geographically anywhere near each other. So it's very unusual that the tour isn't recognizing this and admitting to needing reform.
Yes.
There's a lot of problems with it because, I've heard a lot of people say basically with the way the point system works and everything works now, essentially it makes it so it's extremely difficult to break into the top 100 and it's a lot easier to stay in the top 100. And so now it's almost like it's being gatekept.
Right.
So there's a lot of problems. And this isn't even talking about pay yet. This isn't talking about how much it costs to do all this stuff. We're just talking about logistics. Getting to the events well rested and being ready to play. And then getting into the actual main draw against a guy who maybe has had a few nights of rest, wasn't grinding it out, and then having to beat him.
Right.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, when you're ranked, let's say you win a title, and then you're supposed to play the first round the next day, they'll have you play the day after that.
Yeah.
But that's when you're ranked inside a certain number. When you're outside, you still have to earn your keep.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Obviously, a lot of players talk about that grind. Most likely, Ash Barty probably stopped because of that.
Yeah.
She didn't like the travel that way. So it's hard. So I'm glad that she's doing well, and she's definitely going to get into the U.S. Open for sure.
Yeah.